I'm going to introduce the next guest. She's very special. She's a singer-songwriter, a poet, second Times New York Times best-selling author. She's also a mental health expert. She went from a girl who grew up with no running water on an Alaskan homestead to a homeless teenager in San Diego, to an award-winning multi-platinum recording artist who released one of the best-selling debuts of all times. So now she is a household name. She's performed on Saturday Night Live, at the Super Bowl, the NBA Finals, for the Pope, for the US President of the United States. I mean, so many people. So she's going to speak, but she's also going to perform her latest single, Grateful, live. Welcome, Jewel.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hello,
Hi.
Jewel. Thank you so much. We're so enchanted to have you. Thank you for all your advocacy. I mean, truly, your mindfulness movement, everything. We're just very enchanted. So thank you.
Thank you. This is a wonderful event. I'm proud to be part of it.
Thank you, Jewel. We'll leave it to you. Enchant us.
Wonderful. As she was kind enough to mention, I am Jewel. I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm from Alaska. And I grew up in a difficult situation, like a lot of people do. My mom left when I was 8. My dad took over raising me and my 2 brothers. But he had really bad PTSD. And so he began trauma triggering, but we didn't know what those words were or what those things were. He began to drink to try and handle that stress and anxiety and trauma, and he began to be abusive. So I moved out when I was 15. I started hitchhiking to work. I started getting myself through school. And I knew that kids like me end up becoming a statistic. We end up repeating the cycle that we're raised by. I called it an emotional English. If you're raised with an emotional language in your household, it is the language you'll speak when you leave your household, unless you learn a new one. And sadly, there's no school to learn a new emotional language. So I set out on a very ambitious challenge and journey of relearning an emotional language. If happiness wasn't taught in my home, was it learnable? Was it teachable? I did really quite well. For several years, I did get myself through high school. I did graduate. I moved to San Diego to take care of my mother who was sick. And I was working in a warehouse, and a boss propositioned me one day. And when I wouldn't have sex with him, he wouldn't give me my paycheck. And I ended up being kicked out of where I was living because I couldn't pay rent. My mom went home to Alaska, and I started living in my car thinking it wouldn't last very long, that I would get a new job and I would save up for a deposit on a new apartment. But it didn't work out that way. I was having panic attacks. I became agoraphobic, which is a fear of leaving your home, or in my case, my car. And I had bad kidneys. I almost died in the parking lot of an emergency room of sepsis, blood poisoning, because I let a kidney infection go too long. And they wouldn't see me because I didn't have insurance. Luckily, a doctor had seen me get turned away, and he gave me antibiotics in the parking lot where I was sitting in my car covered in my own vomit. I would have died that night if he hadn't saved my life with those antibiotics. And then the car I was living in got stolen, which sucked. I was stealing a lot, having all these panic attacks, and one day I was in a dressing room trying to steal a dress, and I saw my image in the mirror, and I saw what I looked like. I was a statistic. I didn't beat the odds. 3 short years after setting that goal, here my life was at a grinding halt, and I realized I would die or go to jail if I didn't do something about it. And so I remembered this quote by Buddha that said, happiness does not depend on who you are or what you have. It depends on what you think. So I decided to see if I could turn my life around one thought at a time. But to do that, you have to see what you're thinking, which takes being present. And I didn't know how to because my anxiety was so tremendous. So I decided to create a little hack. I decided to start watching my hands, because the hands are the servant of your thought. And if you want to know what you're thinking, watch what your hands are doing, because your hands are your thought cooled down into action. So my huge plan was to leave the store, not steal the dress, and begin to take notes on everything my hand did for 2 weeks. It was kind of a silly life plan, but it's all I had. After 2 weeks, I realized I quit believing in myself, but the much more interesting thing is my anxiety virtually disappeared, which was noticeable. It was a huge relief, obviously. And I wondered why that was. Words like mindfulness weren't around at the time. Even words like presence weren't words that I was aware of. But I began to learn I had read a lot of philosophy. I remember Descartes saying, I think, therefore I am. And I realized I could change that a little bit to be, I hope, a bit more accurate to I perceive what I think, therefore I am. We're not our mind. We're the observer of our mind. Not every thought, feeling, or action is, not every thought or feeling is true. Our brain comes up with all kinds of things, and we can curate our thoughts. We can choose which ones to engage in, which ones to believe in. So I learned that I was the observer, and I needed to create a much better relationship with my observer. And so I began to develop a series of exercises and practices that helped me specifically build the ability to have presence and then put that presence to work. So when I think of mindfulness, my definition of mindfulness is just conscious presence. It's being able to be consciously present. So the same way we go to the gym to do a workout and build a muscle, we also then want to put that muscle into use during the day. So meditation is how we build this type of muscle, this presence muscle. And they've actually learned that in 8 weeks you can grow new folds in your frontal lobes. You actually can grow gray matter. So it is a real workout. And it's building your capacity to be consciously present. Then, if we want to create change, we have to take that new muscle and create new habits, new actions that build new life. So where I began to really focus my time, besides meditation, was developing exercises that helped me attack, target, focus on really specific personality traits or habits that weren't working for me, like stealing. So there's something called a habit loop, I realized. I called it a triad at the time. Now I've learned the word habit loop. But we have a stimulus, a response, and a reward. The stimulus for me was that I was homeless. And while I worked on not being homeless and trying to find jobs, I couldn't change it quickly or easily. But my response, which had been stealing, was easy to change. Well, easier. So I began to substitute stealing with writing. I picked one that made me feel good. I'd been writing from a young age, and I enjoyed it. So every time I wanted to steal and I felt stimulated, I made myself write. And it didn't feel like a great reward at first. It wasn't the same exciting feeling I got when I stole. But with time, my brain and my neurotransmitters and my entire chemistry did begin to change and began to recognize writing as a reward. So one of the best things we can start to do, and I have these type of exercises on my website, it's jewelneverbroken.com, jewelneverbroken.com, where we can learn to start to look at specific habit loops, things that aren't really working for us. I might be really negative, or maybe it's something very clear like I shoplift, or it can really be anything. Things that you see are causing you pain in your life. You begin to work with these habit loops and rewire them. I began to take this curriculum and introduce it into a youth foundation that I founded with my partner, Ryan. It's called Inspiring Children. Because one thing that really touched me in my life is I never had access to other resources. I didn't have access to healthy adults. I didn't have access to therapists. And the curriculum that I ended up creating for myself helped rewire my brain without much other help. And I wanted to see if it could work for other people. So we began to put it in our foundation, where we give youth this mindfulness toolkit. And it's been incredible to see. We take kids with suicidal ideation, extreme anxiety disorders, and we start to show them that they're not their mind. And we begin to give them exercises to help them retrain, let go of anger, forgive. Excuse me. And the results have been astounding. Last year, these kids who had pretty much been given up on started to, last year 99% of them got accepted to a college. They earned their own scholarships, full rides. 90% of them were Ivy League. And most importantly than those things, they're happy, beautiful warriors of goodness. I thought I might sing a song. We did a big fundraiser, and I put this song together to really highlight some of the principles. One of the things that I learned when I was homeless was that there's only two basic states of being. There's dilated, where we feel open, and there's contracted. Every thought, feeling, or action leads to one of those two states. So you can't be in two states at once. So fear, worry, anxiety, jealousy, greed all contract us. Joy, gratitude, curiosity, observation, love all dilate us. And this is neurophysical. Our body is listening to our minds. And so when we are able, the best hack for me out of anxiety is when we're really tight and constricted, become deeply grateful. Your whole body has to feel it. But it's an incredible practice. I remember the first time I got it to work, I was feeling a panic attack come on, and I saw the light filtering through a tree, and it was gorgeous, and I felt the sun on my body, and I became so profoundly grateful. All my neurotransmitters changed, my blood pressure dropped, my vascular system dilated, and my panic attack was warded off for the first time. So I'd love to sing this for you. This is called Grateful. It's out now. Again, my name is Jewel. Our free mental health website with these types of tools is at jewelneverbroken.com. And if you want to donate to our charity, you can do it through that link as well.
When everything's wrong, when I can't find my song, when darkness is all I see, there is a remedy. It's all the little things that make the world go round. It's all the little things that are most powerful. There's no politician, no sky to die. No one can take the love from my heart, and the sun gonna shine in this heart of mine. The sun gonna shine in this heart of mine. The sun gonna show it's true, 'cause I can always be grateful when the loudest sound is your own life crashing down. And when your friends, they don't come around, yeah, there's one true thing I found. It's the sun gonna shine in this heart of mine. The sun gonna shine in this heart of mine. The sun gonna shine, ooh, it's true, 'cause I can always be grateful.
Thank you for having me.
Go forward. Oh my gosh. Okay, I gotta admit, you guys, I'm fangirling just a little bit. That was amazing. Thank you so much, Jewel. And make sure to go to jewelneverbroken.com and inspiringchildren.net. Jewel offers free mindfulness exercises there, and you can download her new single, Grateful, on Spotify or wherever you listen to music.